Hi, this is Rich, and I'm here with Akvila and Eve Lorgen, and we're going to talk about some neat stuff. Has to do with entities, the Lucifer beings. These are dark beings, also known as Lux beings, that pretend to be light beings. And
Yes.
Akvila and Evie know a whole lot about this subject, so I'm going to turn it over to Evie, and maybe you can explain what a lux being is, things like that, as a place to start.
Okay. Well, I heard this terminology used by Dr. Corrado Malanga of Italy, who's a PhD in organic chemistry, who has done 20 to 30 years of research, not only like in organic chemistry as a professor at the University of Pisa, but he also had an interest in ufology and especially alien abductions, visitations, and what he really termed as alien interferences. So within his work, he identified primarily by doing many interviews and hypnotic regressions with people who had classic alien abduction histories, or if they even want to call it contact, but a lot of the times they didn't have control over these visitations over their lives, okay, with missing time and all that kind of stuff. So long story short, there was several types of beings that he identified that were coming up a lot in his abduction regression testimonies. And there were corporeal beings who tended to have a type of physical body, like certain humans, Nordics, reptilians, grays, whatever, which had a body or identification of a form. And then the ones he calls non-corporeal forms. And so within the non-corporeal entities, there was actually what he called the lux being, and he spelled it Lux. And the root word means light, and it is associated actually with Lucifer, the light bearer. So let's say there would non-corporeal beings, some would show up like a black dot or a shadow or a black ball or a shape or something that may come in or be perceived as coming, let's say, the back side of the body. Like when you perceive an entity or a possession, it'll come in a certain way. But the lux being in particular had a appearance of light, or a big kind of ball, ghosty ball kind of thing that was like light, like whitish yellow. Okay. So this lux being would also come through hypnotic regressions as if it had its own consciousness. And he was able to be able to speak with it through the abductee, through these hypnotic regressions, and speak with the lux being. So sometimes it would move around in their body like a ball of light, and it would often have a voice or act as a spirit guide sometimes. And so one of its qualities and characteristics was that this being was commonly used religion and religious narratives to inculcate its own presence, to stay parasited within the person by promoting its own ideology of God or whatever, in order to parasite our eternal now, what he calls our eternal now soul essence, which in Italian he called anima. Okay, so anyway, so the lux being would do different things, but would create narratives or belief systems within the person that would take advantage of like guilt and shame ideologies, or so that you feel guilty or shameful if you weren't following this particular religious practice or even a new age practice or whatever enough.
Yeah.
But the lux being was actually a parasiter and vampire louche energy of the person, but it disguised itself probably better than a lot of the other ones, simply because it had light to it. So that was one of the things that had come up in a recent dialogue with a correspondent who is a researcher and also experiencer. And so he brought up some things that I had forgotten about. I mean, I wrote several articles about Dr. Corrado Malanga's work, as well as interviewed some of his colleagues who helped me with doing regressions with some people. So what was it that was interesting is that I don't know if it's the lux being or some of the alien beings in particular who parasite the consciousness or the brains or the bodies of these abductees. And these particular beings are associated with, let's say, a malevolent agenda because they parasite the louche energy and the life force of the people. But one of the things they do, I don't know, but I just want to say this, and then I'll let you ask a question, because this was of great concern that Dr. Malanga noticed that really didn't get out there in the ufology as much as I think it should have, simply because we're doing a lot of translations from Italian and had to painstakingly go through like many regressions and like get his theories. But they had the ability and the capacity to subdue the natural awareness and will of what he called soul, anima, which is our eternal now original natural awareness. Okay, that is essentially benevolent and protective of its sacredness, that if it is fully descended and connected and integrated in our body system, or what we called containers, that it would have a natural, like if this parasite came in our body, it would say, get the fuck out. Okay, I'm sorry to sound like this, but it would burn the hell out of this motherfucker. It would kill it and it would disintegrate it immediately. Okay, it wouldn't put up and shut up and enable these parasites who are psychopathic in nature. Okay, but they hide it really well. So Malanga created methodologies so that the soul essence, the anima, could be connected with and descended and integrated enough to be aware to assert its will and intention to disintegrate these parasites and entities that had consciousness but did not have an eternal soul aspect. But they would fool you quite well that they did.
Okay, good. Now, a couple of, I got a lot to say about this. But one, for our audience, people who are watching this, have you experienced or felt anything like this in you or around you, or have you met anybody that you feel like one of these things, these Lux beings were in them? That's one thing. And the second thing I wanted to ask is, Agvila, can you relate to this? Have you seen this sort of stuff yourself? And what are your thoughts on it so far?
Okay, should I let Evie first answer the first question before it goes away and then share my opinion?
Oh, no, I was asking the audience if they knew. And over to you, then I want to get back to Evie on this.
Okay.
This is fucking amazing, interesting shit, man.
Yeah, for me, it's like the key words that you said, Evie. It's like that Luciferian of flight, the being of flight, right? And then there's vampiristic parasite kind of thing. And a lot of people I work with, and even if I'm just going out and hanging out with people, and let's say they do this inner self-betterment work, shadow work, whatever we want to call it, they're like really focusing on all these particles within themselves that they're trying to clean their space, and they're doing the best they can. And a lot of these entities that are in thought forms will appear like in this form of a bubble and like, or just an orb. And I call or I've seen like a lot of these wolves in the sheep clothing, where let's say the dark particles or the negative entities, like they'll have the hard, like darker energy, which is like a lot of people will meditate, focus in their body, clean up the dark spots. And then, after we clean it up, you're just going to have to fill it in with something positive so that the holes wouldn't be filled up with something negative. Yes. So a lot of people are like getting their energy back or their essence, soul fragments and stuff. And so these entities will try to like appear as light beings and even mimic us or try to portray things we value and need and relate to. And it's like, oh, look, here's my creativity. I feel like it's loving energy. And it's actually the entity that will portray or mimic what we need or love or something we used to have. And it's kind of like they need our permission to come in. Not all of them, but some of these entities was like, we're trying to get our soul fragments back. So yeah, come in, fill it in. And it's like, we're like giving the permission to come in. And it's like these entities, while pretending to be good, and they're looking like light little bubble and giving us this little feeling of love, they get in and it's like, they're sleeping. They're gonna be inactive for a while so that you would feel comfortable, like you got something good out of the deal. But then later, it's kind of like sabotaging you from within, where you get kind of like lazy, you don't feel like you're doing stuff anymore, you lose your creativity, your jazz, and all of a sudden those feelings you've talked about where like you start feeling guilty about not doing as much in your life, or like, oh, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, or this and this and this. And even if you're like, I should do this, you're not doing it because the entity is sort of like controlling that feeling and emotion. So it happens to a lot of people.
Yeah. And that reminds me of something that had come up recently in some of Dr. Corrado Malanga's videos that were translated, and probably his writings that are still on the internet, but they're in Italian, so you have to go through translations or Google Translate, and it's hard to get. But one of them was in the implants that they will put in abductees. One of them is emotional, the other one's positional, and then there's the military ones. But there's different kinds of implants. But the emotional one would take advantage of basically messing with the emotionality or the triggering of someone, but their capacity to subdue the natural willpower of the pure eternal non-soul essence, which was the thing that really bothered me, because some people may not know. They think they're just being peaceful and relaxed and chill, and then their natural fight response to an invasive thing that is unnatural is not being activated in them. So it's like you don't notice the unnaturalness of its parasitism and its narrative belief system that it's promoting through a lot of false ideologies.
I see that a lot going on in the New Age. This lack of it's willpower. They don't have the willpower, but you explain it really well. What's going on is that's being subdued consciously and knowingly by other beings external to us. Usually they are not just metaphysical or spiritual psychic kinds of beings, but they're advanced alien technology, negative alien agenda, high tech, know exactly. Some of them are human, some of them are not, but they're physical. They know what they're fucking doing, and they're doing it to us, and they're subduing the will of the people. And so people won't even get fucking pissed when it's time to get fucking pissed.
And then the whole thing that I think Akvila mentioned, that let's say when we're removing like the bad ones, and they're doing these clearing exercises where, they're taking out the bad stuff and they're trying to refill it with the good, and that feels good, but then they have to be careful. What are they filling up with? And is that consenting to something unnatural to re-enter the body? And that makes it kind of tricky, because I think there's an element of consent that happens when you choose to believe and follow a certain belief system or spirit guide or ideology that may give your prayers to a particular ascended master or whatever, right? And then that would be consent to allow in the hierarchical aspect of those beings to work through you and interact and stuff. And that's kind of uncomfortable, because I think there's an element of peer pressure and belief systems that are normalized in a lot of, we could say the New Age, but I could see it happening even within some Buddhist circles or Christian circles. It doesn't matter. It's the same kind of thing. So, I was trying to remember what else it was that would be representative of, let's say if we recognize there's one of these beings, working behind the scenes. And I had something happen relatively recently that was actually many people believe, and I believe this to be true too, is that in biblical scripture, they keep it pretty black and white, that, they don't believe in aliens or ETs. They say they're all fallen angels, they're all demons, But in reality, what we notice in real life with people who have abductions and alien this and that there are characteristics and appearances of these beings who are both corporeal and non-corporeal. But I think the litmus test is, do they deceive? Do they parasite? Do they loose feed? Do they create narcissistic personality disorder behaviors or whatever, right? So the other month ago, I had an interaction with someone who I know has a demon. And it's just something that you start noticing and picking up after a while. And I'm sure Akbil, you have seen this too, you know? And they have a way of behaving where an entity is driving them by the kinds of things they say or do at certain coincidental synchronistic times that create a certain effect. So we had a conversation about something that had to do with belief systems about this or that, but the demon of this person came to me in a dream. And the being actually came when I was lucid, and it literally pulled me up in the dream like it was doing an astral abduction. So it was literally taking my dream body and making me float through and taking me through into another realm or another room. And then this being was like kind of had a nasty disposition, but I wasn't afraid. I was just like, oh, who is this being, you know? And this being was kind of small, and it was wearing this like brown robe and a hood. And it basically took me by its own will, like a type of astral abduction. And I was saying, like, who are you? Who are you? What are you? And then it said, I am Cyclone. And it was like devious and gremlin like I would imagine it being like the, what do they call that? Tasmanian devilish energy. So that wherever it went, it would create this like chaos and nastiness wherever it went, to create like mean critical comments to someone, so that if you had an interaction with them and let's say you revealed something personal about your life or this or that, then they turn around and use it to like dig in the dagger and twist it a few times. Like certain narcissists will do this. For example, like narcissistic behavior can be kind of demonic. All right. But I'm not saying every narcissist has demons, but they will utilize energy or information in such a way that they could turn around and use it later if the being is compelling them to use it against you to hurt you. So in that dream, I felt like that being, I just knew it was associated with this particular person. So to go on with the story, so after I asked the being, I said, well, who are you? Like, usually they don't give me their names. And she just said, I am Cyclone. And then this being, I said, well, what do you want? You know? And then it says, I want your girlfriend. And it was associated with a particular person. And I mean, I'm not bisexual or anything, but sometimes women, we call our women friends girlfriends, but a man won't do that. Like with that's funny how that term is used.
Yeah.
He's not my boyfriend.
Yeah, it was almost like this being.
He's my buddy.
It wanted to enter into the person more fully, and it actually was showing me that this being is actually, you know, targeting this particular person based on that person's disposition. But I knew what it was, and then I knew what was running and what was sometimes they're not fully possessing, but they may be targeting someone or influencing that person. But that it just revealed itself to me that these demons actually have an ability to take you astrally, make you feel like you're being abducted in within a dream, like astrally. Yeah. But that particular one was a demon that named itself, which was kind of interesting.
Well, I want to hear how you got rid of it, and I want to hear Vila's techniques. If she had something like that to ever happen in her world, how would she get rid of it? Vila, Evie, how did you get it out of your space? What was technically, so like a viewer could say, well, that's happened to me. What can I do? And so what's the method or technique of Evie?
Yeah, you know, it actually helped me get more lucid. I was already lucid in the dream, which was good. But luckily I wasn't afraid, and I didn't have as much fear, which was good. And then, you know, right after it told me what it wanted, I said, you know, get out in the name and the power of Jesus Christ. I command you to get the fuck out, you know, and it was gone, you know. So for me, that works better, like immediately to do that. And that tends to work better. But I think what's very helpful is this, if we're just not afraid, if we can manage not having fear, that tends to take away a lot of its power.
Yeah. Excellent. And Vila, how would you, if you had something like that, what are some of the techniques or methods you would use on something like that?
Well, I'll just add first on the fear thing. I know, like when I was a kid, I always felt like someone's in my space, and it would just creep me the hell out. Like I'm sitting there in my room alone, like no one's in the house, and I feel like someone's watching me getting closer. The whole room gets colder, and it's like creepy, and that would like scare the hell out of me. But I've learned like, hey, no, just think of like let's say for me, what really helped back then to get a bit like courageous is like think of some of the heroes or anime characters I liked and their personality, their beingness when they're in that fight or flight. And like, okay, I'm just gonna act like it. Like, hey, I'm this hero, and I just state like, hey, it's my private space. Get the hell out. Like, and same thing. Like, you get in that place where you have no fear. You command them. You give them an order, and eventually, as consciousness, like you have an upper hand. But for me, like one of the biggest things when dealing with entities is like finding their identity. Like it's great when a being reveals who they are, cyclones, so you know who you're talking to, you know who they are, like the Tasmanian devil, like that kind of energy, you know how to deal with them. Like for me, like when I have like, let's say entities in my space or I work with other people, it's always like find out what do they have, what do I have, and what am I working with? So let's say if it's that cluster of being lazy, like we're being like subdued so that like we wouldn't work as much, or as a consciousness, as a being, we wouldn't reach as much in life, or like we're being sick. So this entity in our space is sick. It has a disease. And you're like, okay, you that like has like myopia or scoliosis, or you that has fear, or like, you know, like is always angry, or is like always lazy or whatever. So you give them that label so that you would know who you're talking to. You give them the identity, and then just either talking to them, you know, like some people, and like I'm lucky where I can have a conversation is going to be like either telepathic and I can hear them, or it just comes in as the knowingness, or I can see them and talk to them as if I'm like here with another person, and just like finding out like, why are they here? Why are they messing with me? And how can I help you get out of my space? Because sometimes they're there because of another client. I was trying to help someone out, and now their case, or the beings that are messing with them, knows that I'm the danger because I'm helping the client. So now they have to target me, get rid of me, so that they could mess with the client, can like continue that.
Yeah.
So when they come in my space, it's like, okay, because of the client, and then I'm going to remove the client's issue or that cluster, make sure like, okay, we're going to get it out, or find the core, like the origins, like, why are you messing with me? And if it's related to the client, I will go back into where did it all begin. And the client did something like before coming here on earth to piss off an entity, like let's say being a healer, like in the war zone, and all of a sudden like people who are fighting, like, well, we can't win because someone constantly heals these people, so let's get out the doctor. And so this doctor, being a person that finally incarnated here on earth, is now, you know, like targeted for that continuously. So we're just like, okay, going back in that situation, we're just gonna recreate everything. Like you have your reality where you win and there was no doctor, and they're satisfied. We have a reality where we won and we're satisfied, and they just leave their space. So, you know, like talking to them and finding how can I help them instead.
Yeah, that's true. They do come and attack sometimes the practitioner. But yeah.
Let me tell you some techniques I've used over the years. I used to, back in the 80s, I started dealing with these little fuzzball entities. There's like little dark spots, and sometimes there's one, sometimes a cluster of them. But the way we do it back then is like, the plan is to address entities. We're going to do whatever kind. So you scan your body, and sometimes they'll show up as an entity, like a demon, you can see it, but a lot of times they'll come up with like these fuzzballs. And when you were talking about Agvila, the sheep in a wolf in sheep's clothing, I see this entire pasture full of these fucking black wolves and these clown looking fucking sheep suits looking like what? Bah. Anyway, you scan your body, and usually a good way to do it when you're, it's not the same kind of entity you dealt with in your lucid dream, but these entities, you want to go at it from a perspective of it's a condition or a situation or an emotional thing or a recurring thought is the issue. And the assumption is that there's an entity causing this. If you eliminate all the other possibilities, it's entity stuff. So you can have a negative emotion, always angry, feeling guilty, ashamed. But specific shame about this, not about that, but about this. So this is probably an entity causing this. The details doesn't fucking matter. But so let's say that thing's fucking parked right in your stomach, okay? But so you scan this way, and you focus on the shame as the thing. It's shame about taking that thing that wasn't yours when you were 12 years old. You still feel bad about stealing that shit. So now you're scanning around, and then because you've got that tuned in, you don't know where it is yet, but you kind of like scan yourself this way and this way, and you go bing, there it is. And you see how the size and the shape. You want to get size and shape because that'll give you an identity of it. If you don't know what's fucking name, it's not going to tell you a name. You got a size and shape and a location. So it's right there. It's that size. Okay, now you direct attention to it, like a communication line, like, hello, who are you? This is just one of the techniques. It's a two-way communication technique. You be the facilitator. The first shot is be nice, right? So who are you? And you go, I'm you, or I'm me. It'll say whatever the fuck it wants. They don't know much. They're when they're in this kind of shape, they have been programmed. They were once a sentient life,
Oh,
but they've been degraded through millions and billions of experiences down, and maybe they got soul trapped themselves, and so now they don't even know. Like a lot of humans run around thinking they're just a human person. They're not really a spiritual being that can create universes. They think they're just, who am I? I'm just a guy in a corner, man. I'm just trying to make a living here. Who are you? Oh, I'm your shameful conscience. It will say shit, but now you ask, who are you? Why are you here? Or what is your intention? Or what is your problem? Regarding the shame, what seems to be the problem? Well, the problem is that you're not getting it, that there's a reason that I'm here. I'm the shame, and you got to resolve this. You haven't resolved it. You know, it feels kind of like you're talking to yourself. They always feel like you're talking to yourself. And 75% of the time you feel like it's your own imagination.
yes.
No, this is entity work, and this is how it works. And these little wolves in sheep's clothing, they're in your body and around your space, and there's tons of them. They're all over the place, and it's spiritual work when you get ready for it. But not everybody needs to do it. They attach to the body and the energetic body. But the being, when you get out of your body and you shift into another realm or world or density, you don't take that shit with you. Those things are attached to your physical experience and the energetic thing around your physical. So you can leave here and you can get rid of a lot of fucking entities. Just leave them at the bus stop, man.
Yeah, and I think that's why Dr. Corrado Malanga created hypnotherapeutic, he called them mental simulations, the scientists, but he created ways and using certain speech and words that would archetypically cause us to go from the temporal world of the body and even the energy body, the lower energy body, into the eternal, which has no temporality. It's beyond time. Yeah. And then that way you're able to actually see the ones that are hanging on, that are part of the temporal world, that are actually, I guess you would say, they are consciousness and living souls, but not eternal. So they can't go past into the eternal realm where we have the power to change reality. Yeah. And so is when we could connect with that aspect of being in a process, then that what gives us power to have, I think, understanding and assert our willpower to remove what is truly not our original essence, and then refill with what is natural, so that we always refill the void with something that is pure and natural to us. But that's easier said than done. And I think that, I don't know if Akvila mentioned this, but sometimes the beings that are pretending, like if you do a hypnotherapeutic process, or one comes through almost like channeling, and they may think they're the spirit guide, or they're some positive voice they're hearing. Like a lot of people hear telepathic stuff, they're getting telepathic downloads, they're hearing something all the time, but a lot of times that is the looks being, or that is an AI program. So you have to be able to bypass that and get to the more natural soul essence, which has the power to basically eradicate a lot of those other interference factors. And I really believe that, Malanga did find out that it was true. And it was even, they recruited military to work with these aliens, especially post and during World War II, apparently. So there's a lot of human military who are working under the hierarchy of certain alien beings to do the mass abductions and whatever experiments they're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
So that's a whole new ballgame, so that apparently telepathically you can communicate with, let's say, this was really interesting, is that sometimes there would be one military person who was like in control of maybe a group of abductees, and they might call them a certain number, and they're under a hierarchy of an insectoid. And, and one of the regressions that Malanga did, I'll have to show it to you. The military man that they were communicating with through the abductee. It was through a military implant, right? So the consciousness of the military man in charge of monitoring this abductee was done through basically how that technology. So what was it now? Oh, so this particular military man, he was much older than he really is, but apparently they recruited him because he had no family, right? No connections. And he got recruited into it, kind of lured, given offers of, fame, or you get this or that. And then they would, how they operated, they could just take them in and out of time. So they're just working constantly in and out of time, like monitoring and doing all this work for the aliens on all these different abductees. But, the reason why they take the abductees is because they do have an eternal soul and they can access the energy thereof. And so if we are wise enough to know, okay, if this is what they're doing, let's just use our power to eliminate that problem. But a lot of the problem was that they recruited human military and certain high level intel agencies as well to do the bidding of these beings, the ones that are the dark ones anyway.
Yeah. My understanding is that the mantis beings are some of the bigger ones that they do that. And they also, the ETs with their human puppets and underlings, they will target people with psychic ability, and they start picking off these beings when they're still children. And that's where they get abducted into the secret space program.
Yeah, it's like they know beforehand.
Yeah,
that remains a mystery for some. And I know we had kind of talked about this before we recorded, that there's something, and I'm not sure what the real name or the real scientific thing behind it, but there's some soul frequencies that they're hunting, or that they tend to want to do more research or experiment or loose feeding with. And I think they call it the immortal gene, but I don't know if that's really what it is, or the Isis gene, or the starfire, or this or that. But it's a quality that, and it's a really unfortunate thing that's being done to many, but I don't know if I should mention it or not, but it's a type of targeting that they will take you to many low points in your life through interferences or near death, or, poison you die and you come back, and you die and you come back, and you get, beaten down, come back. And so they test people who they think have a type of immortal gene, so that whatever they throw at them, they just pop back, and they want somehow to work with these people or experiment on them or have them as abductees.
Avila, what are your thoughts on that? The kind of beings that they're targeting. What are you seeing with your clients?
I'm lucky enough to work with some people who have gone through that kind of crap, and it's just, I don't know, scary. They tell their stories with what they experienced, with how many times, let's say, from their very birth, either being raped or physically abused or thrown out or involved in some sort of cults or something like that, and their whole life, to the point where they might be happy for a day or two or a few hours, and then they're pushed to the point of suicide or death, and they get back on their feet and they continue. And working with them, looking into their past lives, a lot of them are connected to the point where, let's say, they know a lot about what's going on, the big picture. Like Akashic Records, let's say someone like Andrew Bartzis, the galactic historian, they know what's going on for real. And a lot of these groups will hey, we need that person, we need information. And instead of dealing with them, trying to hey, well, can you give us this and we're going to give you that? No, they're take, dominate, control. So they're really trapping people here on Earth against their own free will. Yeah. And then messing their whole life. And while they're being messed with, a lot of these abductions happen, actually abducted, their physical body falls asleep, consciousness is being taken, they end up on the ship, they're messing, they put the consciousness in the body already, then they're asked the Akashic Records, then they can find the information they need, use it to mess with others, or use the person as a super soldier, and it just goes on. It just few cases that had this sort of thing, but there's so much, it's just crazy.
What are some of the things you've done, Agvila, to help the clients deal with those kinds of things?
I mean, recently I've just been trying to give as many tools as possible. I used to do the work for them, and I hurt myself with that. It just really ended up being worse for me, because now all these groups that are messing with them point fingers on me, and now I'm the target. So I'm got to step back, find another way so that I wouldn't be dead or on a suicide point. One of the biggest things, coming back to the Lux vampiristic beings that come within our space and all, a lot of these come in, I don't know how to call it, but it's they're going to be the little antenna that receives information. So they're within you. They might be idle. They're not doing much, but they're just watching you 24/7.
Yeah.
Every single thought and feeling and what you're doing in your life and what you're focusing on. And then they're transmitting all that information to the groups that they're working for or being controlled or owned by. And now we have reptilians and greys and mantis and humans and everyone else using that against us with how can we use directed energy weapons or NPCs or people here or situations in life to mess with you more. And then they have like all the tools to control us, to redirect our attention. Like, even that being seduced where they're trying to get better in life. And all of a sudden, what these entities do is give us like a bigger priority of, oh, I have a football game. Oh, I have to do this. And it's minor, but it feels like something big. And in their life, like, they need to work on themselves. They need to do this technique, but they can't focus because there's something bigger going on and they procrastinate, which is pretty much just like a lot of beings messing with you, making sure you don't get to what just is important to you. And for me, getting back to helping them would be finding who's above in the whole hierarchy, who is at the end, like the core, who's doing it all. So whether I guide them to find out what it is by speaking to these entities and like the whole thing, or if I do it for them, like I'm going to go out and find out the bigger picture. I'm like, okay, why is it going on? And then there's tons of scenarios with their past life, with what happened, or if they're just a victim, or if it's just one out of like a few thousand people who are experiencing the same stuff by the same group. And, like then we're like trying to find ways to deal with them, like either making some deals or removing them from the picture, like the third party group that's messing with people, or just like various tools to get better. But it's more like moving from the defensive into attacking, like just deal with the target, deal with the core being that's messing with you. And then you can go back to your life and see if, like anything changes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot. I mean, I think people's, I found that the people's unresolved trauma is the glue that makes it easier for them to hook in and to do what they do. So a big part would be to, understand the trauma. I call it complex trauma because it's more than just PTSD. And if they could self-understand that level, then it doesn't give the entities the glue to loose feed off of. But on another level, like when we're talking about what we discovered with Dr. Corrado Malanga's work, where a lot of the manpower that I think has come in greater numbers now, especially during and post World War II in this particular timeline, is because of the recruitment of military who were maybe working with the victors of that side that connected with those beings, and then didn't really know that they're actually working against the human race, so that we have real human feet on the ground in the physical working to carry out those agendas. So if they could be educated to know that, hey, that this is not good, let's not work with them anymore, we would actually have more power as a human race to use our spiritual power to oust these beings with the power we have innately. So a lot of it is education of like, well, who is helping to do the agenda of these beings? And a part of it is education so that they can see, well, are you sure you really want to work with them? Like, do you know what you're doing? So sometimes it's education, like what Malanga did is that he actually had the person realize through having the soul anima presence present while speaking with one of these beings that were they're basically just telling their agenda. And then when the soul heard it and understood, like, well, do you want to know that they're vampirizing you and they really don't care and they're arrogant and they're just going to kick you out and kill you and they don't really care? Like if you knew a vampire or somebody was really going to take advantage of you, would you want to hang around them? If you knew that they really don't give a shit and they want to hurt you and they're like laughing behind your back, we're like, would you want them in your presence? You'd be like, no way, man, I want to get rid of them. So people just need to realize, well, wow, do I really want a narcissist in my life to fuck me over for the rest of my life? Let's think,
Yeah.
Like that's all you have to think. Like, do you want to be fucked over and ruined? No, I don't think so. So let's just use our power to do what we can do. But I think people don't understand the level of, I know I'm going on here, about the level of deception and the subduing of the will in a way that is like what psychologists would say, well, this person kind of has a codependent, enabling, passive thing going on that kind of is just allowing these things to go on in their life. And that we need to watch that when that's happening, when our will is being taken away from us like that, or when we're enabling, allowing this in because something's subduing a natural good defensiveness. That we need to watch. Yeah.
Good point.
One of the biggest things, I'm just gonna add a little bit to it all, is that I've noticed like a lot of the good guys out there know that in order for us to understand something, like let's say we get out of body or in dreams, they're gonna give us information the way we can sort of perceive it and get it. Like for me, it's a lot of visual. So like they're not gonna talk to me, they're just gonna show me. But bad guys are picking on that up too. And so they're trying to communicate with us and play with us in a way where they're gonna get in our circle and give us something that we're familiar with and we like. Let's say people who are in religious groups, that entity that's going to come and pretend to be someone good is Archangel Michael or Gabriel, or all of a sudden it's Jesus or someone else. And like, I'm talking to this being and it feels great and they come and they help. But that help is like for a very short period of time. And then a lot of mess happens in their life. So it's like identifying, like, is it really good? Or is it kind of like that false light where they're just like teasing you with the good stuff, you're accepting it, you have to agree, oh yes, I agree that you can help me, because they're always looking for that agreement so that they can enter your space. And if you can just notice, like, are they like actually giving and they don't like want anything from you, which is like what most people are, like that are good ones? Or is it actually the one that's like bad and they kind of like want to get in your space by giving you a little bit of good and then really trying to mess you over?
That's funny. That's a good point. Like I actually noticed this in a behavior of someone who came into my sphere of under a certain, let's say, religious orientation that appeared correct and gifted and okay, and coming in as a friend to offer help or want to get me to speak on a vulnerable personal level, and then turn around and come back with an arrogant stab. And then the intention behind it was to try to promote their business so that I would buy something from them. So it was like under the guise of this religious stuff that they were really good and they had these things. And then they came in with the spirit of arrogance and the spirit of deceitfulness and the spirit of wanting to insult you, which was a total demonic thing. And so it was the same thing. They wanted to take something from me, and they wanted to try to tell me how things should be, that they're right and I'm wrong, and then try to sell me to get me to buy their business. And then meanwhile, they're going to insult me right after they did all this good stuff. And then at the end, it's like they put the sword in and then they turn it. And it was like an insult. So it was like the classic behavior of something that comes in, appears good. They get you to self-disclose about certain things you believe to be true. And it sounds like they're believing the right thing. And then they come in with this other stuff that comes in with the hook. It's just like, oh God, I can't believe I just saw this. And a lot of times it disguises itself on a religious front or a spiritual front or a political front or whatever it is,
Yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah. But learn every day.
Every day.
That's what they do.
Speaking of which, Evie, you say like you write a lot of articles. Where can people find your website and read them?
Well, right now it's still elorgen.com or alienlovebite.com. And, I haven't had a chance to do a lot of writing, and I would love to do a writing on the Malanga stuff that was figured out by my correspondent, because they actually picked up some things that, oh my gosh, I had missed that. But the other thing I wanted to mention is I'm going to do a group probably next month in May, probably towards the middle or the end, where we want to explore and use more fully dreaming, dream work, and lucid dreaming for expanded awareness, exploration, and healing, and as well as using that to explore and help heal from complex trauma in anomalous trauma. Because I feel that when we can get into that space more subconsciously, we can have a better idea of how we can utilize our own abilities to become more aware of deep truth as opposed to falsehoods that will come in under certain symbologies. But that's a whole other show right there, is like how things come in, like in your dream space or in imagery or in word syntax, or how it shows itself in dreams.
Yeah.
A lot of times it will reveal itself, much like reverse speech, if you know how to do that, where it reveals itself in syntax and in symbology, so that you can know the true essence of what is being communicated or even hacking into your dream space. So that's a good way to at least explore those things. Yeah, with dream work.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Eve. And so if people want to find out more about Eve and her stuff, it's evelorgen.com and then alienlovebite.com.
Yeah, and you could even go on the, I have a Telegram group and also a Facebook group, but I don't go on the Facebook group much. So what I suggest, since I was hacked and blocked so many emails, just email me directly, believe it or not, with elorgen@gmail.com. And that's probably a faster way to get through to me.
Oh,
Good.
great. Eve, we really appreciate your time and your wisdom and your experience. And wow, it's been great talking with you. And Agvila, your amazing insights and abilities to see beyond the normal range of vision is just profound and really appreciated. And you've helped me a lot, and you've helped a lot of people a lot. And you guys are great. Thank you.
You guys are great too. Thank you.
Thank you for showing up. And everybody, if you have questions about this stuff or comments, be sure to comment in below, and there's be some links below so you can contact us and things like that. So thank you all for watching, and we will talk to you later. Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.